Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Barry with the LawFull channel. We're a minute or two early, but I wanted to get online and start saying hello. In case you've never been here before, this is a great place to get short answers to the legal topics that affect our lives every day. I'm a personal injury attorney in Chicago, and I handle mostly auto accidents, dog bites, slip and falls, that kind of stuff, a lot of motorcycle accidents. So this is an open forum. I've got my top 5 legal questions, and I've got them written out here that people ask me. This week I get tons of questions every week, but I've got my top 5 legal questions that I've been answered. But again, if you have a question, put it in the chat. I really, part of my mission is to answer questions for people who don't have access to other legal resources. So I really encourage you to reach out to me, put comments in the chat, put comments in the comment section of my videos, or just call me if you need some help. I have a huge network of attorneys, by the way, all over the country, and I've referred out a lot of people to get help locally where they are. I'm in Chicago. So if you need any assistance, please reach out to me. Let's go ahead and dive in. It's 12 noon, so we're going to get into the top 5 questions of the week. The first one comes from Margarita, and she commented on my dog bite case or my dog bite video. And the dog bite video was published a long time ago, and I get so many comments on that dog bite video. I mean, it's amazing how many people get bit by dogs every year. But basically, she said that she got bit by a dog. There was no blood and only a red mark there. So fortunately, it sounds like for her, there weren't severe injuries in her dog bite case. But here's the thing about a dog bite case. The first thing you need to know is that so much depends on the state that you're in. I'm in Illinois. We are what's called a strict liability state. And what that means is if the dog bites, boom, the owner of the dog is on the hook, period, end of story. Other states have things like a 1-bite rule, meaning the dog gets 1 free bite before the owner is liable for the damages. And other states use general negligence laws to govern dog bites. So you really got to research the dog bite law in your state. But then secondly, and most importantly is, let's say that you can establish that the owner is on the hook for your damages, okay? Without homeowners insurance, or without renter's insurance, it's going to be extremely difficult to recover anything beyond maybe your medical bills, which the other person might agree to pay. So it's critical in a dog bite case that there be some sort of insurance to pick up the tab for your damages. All right. So that's the first question of the week on dog bites. Thank you, Margarita, for that. I hope I answered some questions for you on that topic. The second question of the week comes from Lucerne. I don't know if that's a male or a female, but Lucerne made a really good comment on my most recent video from last week, which was on gap insurance. Listen, if you're thinking about buying a new car, you ought to seriously consider getting gap insurance. So check out that video from last week. You won't be sorry you did. I've seen it so many times that people wish they had gap insurance when their vehicle gets totaled. But anyways, here's Lucerne's story. Basically, he purchased a brand new car, all cash, and it was totaled after 11 months with just 5,000 miles on it. Didn't buy gap insurance, and he puts here, it's the biggest regret of his life on this with regard to this car. So here's the thing about gap insurance. I'm not going to go too deep into it because I did a video just last week on it. But when you buy your car, theoretically, there is no equity in your vehicle, or very little equity in your vehicle. Let's say you finance $25,000 of a new car. The second you drive that car off the lot, it loses a ton of value. It loses a ton of equity. So what happens if you get in an accident and the car is totaled? Well, the insurance company is not going to pay for the amount you paid for that car. They're on the hook for what's called the actual cash value of your vehicle. Well, your actual cash value is going to be much lower than you paid. In my hypothetical, let's say you paid $25,000 for the car. Well, the actual cash value, let's say, is $15,000. So there's a $10,000 gap between what the value of the car is and what you paid. Well, who's going to pay the finance company for that money that you still owe, that's still outstanding? You are, unless you have gap insurance. So check out that video on gap insurance for some additional information. I think it will really benefit you, especially if you're buying a vehicle with no equity in it. By the way, I put a link to the gap insurance video in the description below, and I put a link to all the videos that I'm talking about in the description below if you want to get access to them. All right, so the third comment of the week, this is actually the comment of the week. You know, this is the one that I really like, and I put it on the quote on the thumbnail for this video. And it was basically that I assume his lawyer found $2.3 million extra insurance when the defendant's insurer originally said they only had $800,000 in insurance. All right, so he found this on the biggest mistakes people make after auto accidents video that I did. But in reality, the video you need to watch is how to settle a car accident case. I assume that a lot of you are taking care of your cases on your own. You didn't hire an attorney. And frankly, if you have small damages, not too many injuries, or just property damage, you're going to do that. But before you sign on the dotted line, there are a bunch of things that you need to do, like negotiating medical bills, negotiating and paying off your medical liens, things like that that you may not even know about. So make sure you check out that video that I did. But one of the things that you can do is, let's say you get in an accident and the defendant and the defendant's insurer tells you that you have $100,000 in insurance. Well, are you just going to take their word for it if you have $1 million injury? No, you're going to want to send them an asset verification form, a form that they have to sign in front of a notary public, documenting that they don't have $100,000 in assets. They have $1 million, or that they don't have any other insurance, like underinsured motorist, or excuse me, an umbrella policy that you can tap into. You may even want to hire an investigator to look into this if you have a severe, severe injury. So check out that video on the things you should do before you sign a release from an insurance company. I think you're going to be surprised at the steps you have to jump through before you settle your case. And it's one of the reasons I always recommend people get a personal injury attorney if they've suffered injuries in an accident. Okay, so the fourth question of the week comes from a guy from Know There. I don't know if that was a spelling mistake, a guy from nowhere or what, but that's who left this message. And he watched the video called The Biggest Mistakes That People Make After a Car Accident. And he said something that is a little bit of a touchy subject for a personal injury attorney, but here's his quote. I'll let you judge. He said, I actually find there are more insurance scammers faking back injuries or whiplash than real victims. I can understand why the insurance companies fight you. Really? Listen, there's no question that there's fraud in the system. And if you ask the insurance companies, there's massive fraud. If you ask the Insurance Institute of America, the fraud is like $40 billion a year, okay? But I haven't seen that in my personal practice. Typically, you can spot insurance fraud pretty easily. And I've actually received a few calls from people that I knew were just total BS. But that is the slim, slim minority of cases. Certainly not enough for an insurance company to be skeptical and lowball every single claim that we bring to them. So while there is fraud in the system, there's going to be fraud in every single system. There's no avoiding it. But the bottom line is, I think that the amount of fraud is dramatically overblown. And to refute what this individual said, I certainly don't think it's the type of fraud that would justify how difficult insurance companies make it for people with legitimate injuries to actually recover for their damages. Okay, that's enough off the high horse there for a second. Let's go to question number 5 this week. And this came from Jose. And he watched my video on pain and suffering and all the other type of damages that you can recover after an accident. But his question wasn't really on that. His question was on chiropractors. And that is, can he change chiropractors midstream? Can he go from one to another? And, the answer is sure, you can do that. But I thought I would answer the chiropractor question a little bit differently. So first of all, chiropractors are totally legitimate. I have personally gone to chiropractors. I went to Greg Gersten here in Northbrook, Illinois, by my house of Align Wellness, and I'm a big believer in chiropractors. Insurance companies are skeptical of chiropractors, and they're definitely skeptical of people who go to see a chiropractor 50 times, for example. Any kind of repeat treatment like that over that extensive amount of treatment is going to be treated skeptically. But I would like to give you one tip when it comes to treating with a chiropractor. And that is, while it is legitimate, I would strongly recommend going to see your primary care physician, your internist, your general physician, before you go see the chiropractor. Don't just go to the chiropractor first. As legitimate as they are and as much as I believe in them, go to your primary care physician first and let them refer you to a chiropractor. It may be that they want to refer you for physical therapy or something else. But I assure you, at least from what I've seen, is that if you get referred to a chiropractor from a primary care physician, it's just taken a lot more at its face, or it's looked at more legitimately by the insurance company when you try to settle your case later on down the line. All right? So those were my top 5 legal questions of the week. Doesn't look like we have any questions from anybody. If you haven't already, would you subscribe to the LawFull channel? I post every Tuesday a new video, and every Friday I go live with my top 5 legal questions of the week. And if you have any questions or comments and you want to reach out to somebody for some help, again, my mission is to help as many people on here as I possibly can. Please feel free to reach out to me. My number and email address and website are in the show description. All right, that's it for this live. See you this coming Tuesday and then next Friday for another live video. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.